Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's PIC. As everyone knows, we're going to be discussing the Holland Street EA study, and we very much appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy schedules to join us. Before we continue, I'd like to introduce Katie Motoresi from the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, to give an introduction for the project.
Thank you very much. I'm Katie Motoresi, manager of Capital. Today we have Marcio Marquez. He's the project manager from town, as well as our director, Peter Lukes, with us. I can see one of our counselors that is with us, but I'm pretty sure the number is higher. However, I don't have access to the entire list, so I apologize if I'm not naming you. We will be going through the presentation fairly shortly. I just want to make sure that you all know that we welcome any input you have, any comments you have. There will be some interaction with you through surveys and questions. However, that's not the only limit that is ahead of us. You have more access to us and to the presentation and survey even after this presentation is complete and over. So please feel free to contact us and stay in touch with us. With that, I'll pass the introduction of our consultant WSP to Jay.
Hi, thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Goldberg. I'm the project manager for the consultant engineer at WSP. With us, I have a few colleagues. We have the deputy project manager, Christine Vaz.
Hello, everyone.
Our consultation lead, Jeremiah Pariag.
Hi, everyone.
Our environmental assessment and planning specialist, Olivia Falcone.
Hello, everyone.
And Jennifer Sisson, our landscape architecture and streetscape lead.
Good evening.
I'll also introduce and pass it over to Marcio, our project manager from the town.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for making it out today. Although this is not a traditional public information center meeting like we would normally do in person, I do appreciate people taking time out of their evening to attend our second session public information center meeting. I am, as Katie mentioned, the project manager for this project, and I will be heavily involved working alongside WSP to deliver this project to council later this year, about mid this year in June. And we do welcome everyone's input. We encourage everyone's input, whether you're a business owner or a resident of town or anyone. We do encourage you to provide your comments, your concerns, what you'd like to see, what you don't want to see, and what you might think some improvements could be along the Holland Street corridor. My contact details will be provided at the end of this presentation. And I do encourage you to reach out with any questions or anything you do have.
Great, thank you, Marcio. I'm going to pass it off to our consultation lead, Jeremiah, to go through some of the Indigenous land acknowledgements, as well as our PIC etiquette for these online events, and start us off with the agenda.
Perfect. As Jay mentioned, we're going to be continuing with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge that the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee nations have walked on this territory over time. In times of great change, we recognize more than ever the importance of honoring Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect, and good health with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. As representatives of the people of the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work in this territory. We can go, perfect. And here you'll see the agenda for today's meeting. We'll be starting with study purpose and study area. Then we'll be discussing ongoing studies that impact this study. That'll be followed by the municipal class EA process and study timeline. Following that, we'll discuss problems and opportunities. Then we'll have a discussion related to policies and best practices review. That'll be followed with existing land use and configuration along Holland Street. Then we'll move into opportunities and ideas to consider. And finally, we'll discuss next steps and how to provide comments. We've allocated quite a bit of time for Q&A in today's session, so we should be able to get to all of the questions, but if we do run long, we'll be able to answer any questions via email or via the project website. We understand as well that the presentation software we're using might be a little new to some of the attendees here today, so I want to provide a quick overview of how it works. During the Q&A, if you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat box that should be on the right side of your screen. If you don't see it on the right side, feel free to refresh and it should come up. If you would like to join the meeting and listen in via phone or ask a question verbally during the presentation, feel free to dial 1-855-925-2801 and enter code 4984. You should see it right above the presentation window where you can see it being highlighted on the screen there. After you call in, you can press *3 to join the queue to ask your question verbally. If you would like to leave us a voicemail instead with your comments, you'll also have the option to do that. You can additionally take part in our live survey via text message, which we'll be sharing details on shortly. And because we only have an hour for today's presentation, we're going to be addressing all questions during the Q&A period towards the end of the presentation, but feel free to use the chat box at any point to ask questions throughout the meeting. Please note as well, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the project website following the meeting today. Perfect. And before we continue, we just wanted to start with a brief question to help us understand who is in attendance today and to get everyone a little bit more familiar with the platform that we're using. So if you scroll down just a little bit, just below your window screen, you should see a button that says Step 1. Feel free to click that button and you should see a question that comes up. The question is, tell us about yourself. Please check off the box below that best represents you. We have a couple of options listed there. We have resident, business owner, developer, town staff, federal or provincial ministry staff, or other. If you click other, you'll be able to type in any customized response of your choice as well. And you can also participate in this survey using the text options you'll see at the top of the screen. So we'll just give everyone a moment to answer the questions. Perfect. And I know that the text box wasn't working a little bit earlier for some people, but feel free to refresh the page and it should be up on the right side now. If there's any questions you would like to ask us throughout the presentation. And I'll pass it over to Jay to begin his presentation.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We're going to start going into the meat of the Public Information Center today, talking about our study purpose and as well as the study area. I just want to reiterate previous comments that we really appreciate people's taking their time out of their evening to attend these sessions. It's very important. And we know you're very busy, and so we really appreciate you taking the time. It's very important for yourselves to provide the input on what's important to you about this corridor, and it also helps us through our design study. So thank you very much. The next few slides will discuss the purpose of the municipal class environmental assessment study and the specific area that we are looking at. The purpose of the study is to transform Holland Street to align with the town's strategic plan, which includes promoting employment growth, improving community and traffic safety, reducing congestion, and upgrading existing facilities. This study will be a key component in revitalizing the town's downtown core and transforming it into an inviting, walkable, people-friendly shopping district that will serve as a destination location for residents and visitors to enjoy. The study purpose provides the reason why this study is being carried out. However, it's really the vision of Holland Street corridor, which will be discussed in a few slides, that provides the direction of this study and what we're really looking to get your input on tonight. The study area is central to Holland Street, extending from Professor Day Drive and Melbourne Drive in the west to the intersection of Deset Street and Marshview Boulevard in the east. It also includes some sections of roads crossing Holland Street, including the central crossing road of Berry Street up to John Street and Simcoe Road down to Thomas Street. There are a few other studies which we need to consider as part of the town's larger context, which will have an effect on the town as well as our environmental assessment study. The town-wide transportation master plan study will develop a guide for the sustainable, efficient, and safe movement of goods and people within and around the town. The Holland Street environmental assessment study is being carried out concurrently with the town's transportation master plan. The transportation master plan study will inform the Holland Street environmental assessment study by recommending traffic and active transportation along the Holland Street corridor. The transportation master plan and this municipal class environmental assessment study represent a fully integrated approach to the transportation planning and revitalization of Holland Street. For more information on the transportation master plan, please visit the town's webpage at the link below. The Bradford Bypass, which is another study you may have heard, is another key project that will affect the future of traffic in the town as well as along Holland Street. Currently, Holland Street is the only connection for highways 400 and 404 north of Newmarket. The Bradford Bypass, which has been announced by the province, presents an opportunity to shift the regional through traffic off of Holland Street and to more fully utilize Holland Street as an inviting and vibrant downtown core, which will be enjoyed by the community. The projected changes to the traffic volumes that will result from the Bradford Bypass will be completed as part of the Transportation Master Plan. And as we noted on the previous slide, the Transportation Master Plan will inform this study and provide transportation recommendations for this corridor. The town is also undergoing an official plan review. An official plan provides a vision for the future growth and generally guides where new homes, schools, businesses, and parks should be located. It includes policies with respect to the construction of new services, such as roads and sewers, as well as protecting our natural and built heritage. The official plan update was adopted by Council in March 2021. It is now with the County of Simcoe, the approval authority for amendments and updates to the town's official plan. The official plan prescribes and directs growth town-wide, including within and adjacent to the Holland Street Environmental Assessment Study area, which will undergo intensification. Simcoe County is currently undergoing a municipal comprehensive review to revise the regional official plan. The regional official plan will plan for the growth of the county based on the recently released 2022 census data. Following the adoption of the Simcoe County Regional Official Plan, the town will revise its official plan to be consistent with the regional official plan. The future growth and intensifications outlined in the official plan update are included in the Transportation Master Plan analysis, which again affects the transportation recommendations for Holland Street. The official plan also provides the vision for the corridor, which will guide the character of Holland Street. I'm now going to pass it off to my colleague Christine to walk us through the next few slides.
Thank you, Jay. So next we'll be talking about the municipal class environmental assessment process and the study timelines. The Class CA process provides a consistent, streamlined, easily understood process for planning and implementing infrastructure projects, including road, water, wastewater, and transit projects. This project is following the municipal class environmental assessment process and is being completed as a Schedule C project. As a Schedule C project, the following 4 phases are required to be completed. Those phases are Phase 1, the problems and opportunities. This is where our project currently is, and we'll be speaking to the problems and opportunities shortly in the next few slides. Study commencement took place in January, and our first public information center for the project is today. In Phase 2 will be the alternative planning solutions. As Phase 1 ends, we're entering this phase and we'll be looking at alternative planning solutions to the project that address the problem and the opportunities. Phase 3 is developing and evaluating alternative designs. Public information number 2 falls here in this phase, and it will take place in April, where we'll present the design alternatives and preliminary recommended alternative. And then phase 4 is preparing our environmental study report, and a notice of study completion will be sent out to the contact list in June, and there'll be a 30-day public review of that environmental study report. The next few slides here will discuss the problems and opportunities of the project. This slide outlines the problems with Holland Street and where the opportunities lie to align the corridor with its vision. The planned Bradford Bypass creates an opportunity to shift the regional traffic off of Holland Street, and as noted previously, to more fully utilize the downtown core for the town's benefit. Holland Street corridor acts as a gateway to the urban center and downtown core, and it needs to be updated with the town's vision of reducing congestion, promoting employment growth, improving community and traffic safety, and upgrading existing facilities. The Holland Street EA study can provide a redesign of the Holland Street corridor as part of the downtown's revitalization into an inviting, walkable, people-friendly destination. So ultimately, as Jay noted previously, it's the vision for Holland Street that is driving the direction of this study. And some key items the project team sees as being important in the Holland Street corridor and included in this vision are being a people-friendly shopping destination, being an area reflective of the small town heritage charm, including a hub for art, music, and cultural events, including landscaping, plus places to rest and relax, including public art to reflect the area's farming, settler, and Indigenous histories, including flexible use spaces suitable for use as summer patios, and including ways to minimize and mitigate the construction impact on businesses and residents. We are seeking your input today throughout this presentation to hear what your vision of Holland Street corridor is and take your feedback to help determine a preferred design for the corridor. These next slides will note the policies and best practices review the project will be following. We'll be working within the existing policy framework at the provincial, county, and local level, such as following the provincial policy statement, places to grow, county TMP updates, local official plan, and downtown Bradford revitalization strategy, to name a few. And here are some examples of best practices and design guidelines that our project team members will be referencing and following, such as the Bikeway Traffic Control Guideline, Geometric Design Guide for Canada Roads, and the Ontario Traffic Manual, to name a few. The next slides will be speaking to the existing land use of the corridor and the current configuration of Holland Street. The map here outlines the existing land uses in the project area. The dashed blue line outlines the project study area, and the light pink area is designated as downtown Bradford, which is throughout our study area. The study area is also surrounded by a residential buildup shown in the light yellow. We can also see that Holland Street is considered an arterial major street, and that our study does cover off some arterial minor streets at a few intersections at Professors in Melbourne, Simcoe Road and Berry Street, Marshview Boulevard. There are a few collector streets to intersect with Holland Street as well, which are Miller Park Avenue and Collings Avenue. These collector streets distribute traffic between the local and arterial roads. There are also bus routes and stops along Holland Street and its intersections, as well as proposed trails connecting to the east and west ends. This map here presents the planned growth in the downtown core of Bradford West Gwillimbury. As you can see, any new development will require buildings to be a minimum of 2 to 4 stories and have a maximum of 4 to 10 stories. The Holland Street EA study will consider this growth as part of the study. With the revitalization of Holland Street comes density, which creates opportunities to encourage more multimodal travel in this community. The context of the roadway changes as one traverses the roadway on Holland Street from west to east. The western section of the project is more characteristic of an arterial boulevard, whereas the section east of Holland Court presents the typical characteristic of a downtown street. This here is the view of the existing conditions on Holland Street east of Collings Avenue. This area would be considered more an arterial boulevard. There is currently a sidewalk on both sides of the street, with lighting and 4 driving lanes ranging in widths. This area of Holland Street east of Barry Street would be considered more of the typical downtown area when it comes to the cross-section. The cross-section changes slightly here and includes a slightly wider sidewalk and larger lighting space with parking lanes on either side of the road and 2 driving lanes. This slide focuses on the current available parking along Holland Street. As you can see, there are many opportunities at commercial parking lots along the whole corridor, shown in blue, and some on-street parking along a few intersection streets, shown in yellow. Then the on-street parking in pink, as previously shown in the cross-section, has a time limit in the more downtown characteristic area of Holland Street. There are also 5 designated public parking areas surrounding the downtown characteristic area that are shown in red. And here are some images showing examples of the existing commercial and public parking and on-street parking along and adjacent to Holland Street.
Perfect. And we have a couple more questions now. So if you scroll down and click on step 2 from your video screen, you should see 2 questions that come up. The first one is, what do you like about Holland Street? And the second question is, what are some of the issues with Holland Street? There are multiple options for each, and feel free to select as many or as few options as you would like. You'll additionally have the option to click the other box and type in custom options there as well if you'd like. You can also participate as well by via text with the information that's above your video screen. And we'll go ahead and give everyone a minute or so to answer these questions here. Okay, perfect. I see lots of responses coming in. We'll just give it another second or two. Okay, perfect. We can move on to the next slide, and Olivia, you can continue whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. So in this next section, we will look at the opportunities for Holland Street and explore the ideas and design approaches that can apply to this corridor. The project team is convening this public information center to obtain feedback from the public. Specifically, in the next sections, we want to present on the following opportunities and design considerations and ideas. Then we want to get your feedback on what is important to you and how you envision the future of Holland Street. A complete street design is being considered throughout the corridor. With reduced traffic from the announced Bradford Bypass, a complete street will help to enhance the corridor as an inviting, vibrant, and comfortable destination. Complete street designs are meant for all ages. This type of design promotes activity, livability, and connectivity for all modes of travel. We recognize that each community and each corridor is unique from other ones. As such, the complete street design approach for Holland Street will include considerations to the projected traffic volumes projected by the Transportation Master Plan study, the projected needs of the corridor based on future land uses, the existing adjacent and surrounding neighborhoods, the desires of the community and stakeholders, and the existing downtown character and the widths of the road. Next are the opportunities and ideas to consider. Active transportation, such as cycling and pedestrian space, parking, urban design, landscaping / streetscaping and amenity spaces, smart solutions, such as parking and curbside management and smart traffic lighting solutions, the number of travel lanes, and accessibility. We will go into some of these in more detail later in the presentation. Before we move on to the next section to explore the different design components of a road, we want you to think about the following design considerations. This image was taken in the downtown just west of Simcoe Street. As you can see, this stretch of Holland Street is the narrowest, with a right-of-way width of 20 meters. There will be no opportunity to widen the road in this area. Currently, there are sidewalks on both sides of the street, with restricted parking on the north side during the evenings and mornings. So with that, I will pass it off to Jen.
Thanks, Olivia. So with those design considerations in mind, we can take a deeper dive into the different components and zones that make up the street. So within a typical complete street, there are various zones from one side of the street to the other, as shown in this image. Starting from the center of the road, we typically find that the travel lane zone here for vehicles. Adjacent to the travel lane is often a street parking zone. Together, the travel lane and the parking zone form the roadway, or the area dedicated to cars. Moving away from the center of the street is a cycling zone. When the cycling zone is located on the roadway, it's often delineated from the vehicular zone as a painted or buffered bike lane. Sometimes when the road is wide enough, the cycling facilities may be elevated and separated from traffic for increased safety and better enjoyment of the street by both drivers and cyclists. As we move towards the edge of the street, we find the pedestrian zone, where you'll have sidewalks, and an amenity zone, which may contain patios, plantings, art, and furnishings. As we looked at in the design consideration slides, it's important to remember that we have a constrained width along Holland Street. All of these zones won't fit, and we want to understand what zones are most important to you. This slide shows some examples of travel lanes and the parking zone. It's worth keeping in mind that the typical travel lane is about 3.5 meters wide, and parking usually occupies around 2.5 meters. To put that into perspective for Holland Street, where segments are only 20 meters wide, with 2 travel lanes in each direction, 70% of the available space in the public right-of-way will be used up. If parking is also included on both sides of the street, another 25% of the roadway would be used, which leaves only 5% or 1 meter of space for any other type of zone. This is obviously not an ideal scenario and wouldn't leave enough space for a single sidewalk. As such, redistributing roadway features to the cycling zone, amenity zone, and/or pedestrian zone will be considered in this study. So let's explore the pedestrian and cycling zones. Cycling facilities can be located either on road as cycling lanes next to the travel lanes or parking, or be elevated and separated from the road and adjacent to pedestrian and amenity areas. When located on street, the cycling lanes often include a painted or physical buffer for cyclist safety. Each on-street cycling lane with buffer typically occupies around 2.5 meters. The pedestrian zones or sidewalks will vary from a minimum of 1.5 meters to 3 or more meters wide, depending on the volume of foot traffic anticipated. This means that together, the cycling lanes and narrow sidewalks being on both sides of the corridor would take up about 40% of the street width, leaving space for 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction, and an additional 1.5 meters of amenity zones on both sides in the narrowest sections of Holland Street. The amenity zones are the flexible spaces that help to create character, beautify the street, and provide enjoyment to those who visit and travel through the corridor. These spaces contribute to a vibrant public realm and invite us to stay and enjoy the space. Amenity zones are the most flexible spaces, both in terms of the area they take up and what they can hold. They can range anywhere from 1 to 5 meters wide or more. And as shown in this slide, amenities in these zones may include patios and movable seating from nearby restaurants, or decorative street trees, grasses, perennials, or even bioswales to assist in controlling the quantity and quality of stormwater runoff. The larger the amenity zone, the more possibility there is to incorporate a multitude of elements. These amenity spaces can be flexible and seasonal. For example, flexible patio spaces can temporarily take over parking spaces in the summer, then be removed for the winter. Given the length of the corridor, where space permits, multiple amenity types can be implemented in these zones. For example, a section may have patio space, while further down the corridor, the zone may be used for another amenity, such as plantings or street furniture. Here are some typical examples of furnishings within the amenity zone: seating, bike racks, and waste receptacles. Other types of furnishing within the amenity zones may also include utility features such as street lighting. Shown here are examples of illumination within the amenity zone. Pedestrian scaled lighting can help to foster a more intimate pedestrian environment while also helping to create a safer corridor at night. There are also opportunities within amenity zones to incorporate gateway features and public art. Gateway features welcome travelers with a distinct entrance, introducing the community and contributing to a sense of place. These may be located within an amenity zone or could even arch over the roadway, as seen in the example on the bottom left. Another amenity is public art, which can either be permanent or temporary installations within the amenity zone. These pieces can celebrate the community, including Indigenous history and culture, and may also showcase the current works of local artists. Together, gateway features and public art can often be a source of pride for a community by recognizing and celebrating local cultural heritage, and also providing the possibility to incorporate Indigenous artwork.
Perfect. And we have a couple more questions now. So if you scroll down from the video page, you should see two questions that come up when you click on step 3. The first question is to please rank the following streetscape zones in order of preference. And the second question is to please rank the following amenity spaces in order of preference. You can use your mouse to slide and order the priorities for each question. Unfortunately, these questions cannot be handled via the text feature we have open. But for those who are participating via text, you can complete the survey on the project website anytime before March 4th. So I'll give everyone a few moments to prioritize the options as Olivia is doing on the screen right now. Let's give it another few seconds to see a lot of the responses coming in. Perfect. And we can move on to the next slide. And Jay, you can continue whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you, Jeremiah. We're going to be wrapping up the presentation part of today's session. And I just wanted to reiterate before we get to the end, I really appreciate, again, everybody's attending this session and taking the time out of your evenings. Next slide, please. In addition to the design elements that have been discussed in this presentation, the environmental assessment will also review other technical design elements, including the cultural heritage, landscape, municipal services, the natural environment, illumination and smart technologies that have also been discussed, the traffic and parking considerations, as well as noise and air quality, just to name a few. Going to pass it off to Marcio from the town to wrap up our presentation.
Good evening again. I just wanted to let everyone know, and it's already been mentioned as we've gone through this presentation. As you've seen, we've stopped at certain key points along this presentation for people to fill out that survey online. So that survey, the commencing period of that survey is today. And we're hoping to get as many responses back by March the 4th. And as part of that program, the town of Bradford is actually providing an incentive. So what we'll be doing is we're going to be having a draw based on the people that do participate in those questions and submit their information, having a draw for one $100 gift card and 3 $50 gift cards to a restaurant of choice. So we do encourage people to register and to fill out that survey and to submit it to us. So what we'll be doing over the next couple of months is we're going to be carrying out the background studies. And as Jay had mentioned, there was the slide before showed a bunch of different words and some pictures that describe some of the studies that we're going to be undertaking. The studies are all done in the background while we work on our transportation master plan and determining what Holland Street could potentially look like. And so we'll be coming back with a design alternative at our Public Information Center meeting number 2, which we're planning to hold April of 2022. So as I mentioned, the project is quite fast tracked. We're planning to go to council at the beginning of June with our recommendations for this project, with the implementation of an environmental study report later this year. So again, I do encourage you to reach out to me. My email contact is there. You can also visit the town's website at www.townofbwg.com/HollandEA for more details about the project. This presentation in PDF format will be posted on our project website on that link that you see on the page. And we'll also be posting the video conference from the 6:30 meeting and also, from the 5:30 meeting and also from this meeting. So if you did miss anything or you wanted to review the slides or some of the questions that were asked, that material will be available in the coming days on our website. We do encourage you to take a look, and maybe it might spark some comments or concerns or questions that you might have. Again, feel free to reach out to me. I'm all ears. The way this project is going to move forward and effectively is with your input and your contribution. So we do encourage you, whether you're a homeowner, a business owner, a resident of whatever sort, please do reach out to us and provide us with your input. Again, thank you very much for attending this evening, and I'll pass it over to Jay.
Perfect. So we're going to be opening up the floor for Q&A now. For those who recently joined the meeting, I'll just recap the instructions for how to participate. If you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat box on your screen. If you would like to ask a question verbally, there's a phone number right above the video screen here. It's 1-855-925-2801, and you can dial 4984 to join the audio conference for this meeting. Once you click that screen, you'll have the option to either leave your comments with us via voicemail, or you can press *3 to join the queue to ask your question verbally. For those who would prefer to participate in the survey via text, feel free to use the texting option shown above the video screen as well. And on the PowerPoint slide here, you'll see that we have 4 prompt questions ready to go. The 4 prompt questions are: which roadway features do you consider the most important? What don't you like about Holland Street today? What do you like about Holland Street today? And how do you imagine Holland Street in the future? These are just some prompt questions to get everyone thinking a little bit. So feel free to ask any questions related to these prompts or any questions at all that are related to the study. And a friendly reminder as well, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the project website following the meeting. And with that, we will open the floor. We don't have too many comments, so if anyone has any thoughts, feel free to type them into the chat box. If you don't see a chat box, if you refresh, it should be there. But we do have one question. The question is, I would like to see downtown Bradford be more welcoming, especially for families. An example is Main Street Newmarket, or Main Street Uxbridge, or Main Street Unionville. The person who posed this question identified as a local business owner, particularly a business that caters to students. And they noted that there's a lot of traffic in the downtown core that is not safe for students in terms of walking to school or for the parents to drop off their students. They noted that they would like to see improvements in the downtown in the same as in the new developments in Bradford. Marcio, can we go to you on that question?
Sure. So as part of this study, and that's a great question. I think that's our end goal here. That's what we're really trying to do, is to make the downtown, especially where we have those pinch points between Holland Court and Nelson or Bingham along Holland Street East and West. We're trying to make it a more inviting place for people to come, a safer place for people to walk along or cycle or even drive for that matter. So as part of this study, we'll be looking into that flexible space to widen the sidewalks, make parking more available, make patios more available, make it safer with the use of potentially bollards or vegetation planters, where we can create a division between the traffic and the pedestrian. And hopefully with whatever configuration that the Transportation Master Plan recommendation provides for Holland Street, we can learn to slow down traffic and manage traffic in a more effective way, in turn making it safer for everyone downtown.
Perfect. we had another comment. The comment was, we need areas to gather in Bradford. Jen, I want to send that question to you first. Perhaps you could talk about some of the streetscaping options, and then we could refer that question afterwards to Jay or Marcio for further comment.
Certainly. So thank you for the question. As I kind of went over in our presentation, we've got an opportunity to look at different zones along the corridor. And while we have different amenities available along the length of the corridor, we may look at different uses. So if there's a strong desire to have gathering areas, we can keep that in mind. There isn't a huge amount of room in the right of way to allow for that, but one of the things we will be looking at in this study is if there's an opportunity to create more spaces along the side roads as well. So we will be looking into that a little bit further.
And Jay, Marcio, anything to add on your ends?
Yeah, just to note, yeah, thank you for that comment. You know, that's one of the things that Jen will be looking into in terms of the amenity spaces. In terms of, you know, we talked about different areas along Holland Street. In the downtown core is really kind of a small portion of the study area, although it's, you know, one of the more critical ones that is very confined and constrained. But along the west half of the study area, there's a bit more right of way that we can work with to kind of introduce some of those features. But I think, you know, Marcio might have a kind of a good idea of maybe some other areas outside of the study area that the town might also be looking at.
Thanks, Jay. I think for the most part, Jen and Jay have answered the question. We do have some areas along the study corridor that we could look at as potential gathering points. One in particular is John and Nelson. We do have a park in behind the town's finance building that could be considered a gathering point. We also have our clock tower in the downtown core, just east of Barrie and Simcoe Road, right next to our finance building, right next to the courthouse. That has been a long time known as gathering points, flag raising opportunities, and really the central hub anytime there's festivals in the downtown. So those types of areas already been established in the downtown core. We will be looking at some potential side streets and what we can do with those to make them a little bit more inviting or gathering points. Something along the lines of Moore Street or Drury Street, if you're familiar with the downtown, are being looked at as potential candidates for something of a gathering location. But also, as Jen mentioned in the presentation, there'll be areas along the downtown core, specifically within that pinch point between Holland Court and Nelson or Bingham, where we're looking at that flexible space. We're looking at locations where we can still include parking on road, but also the ability to modify that to include areas for patios, gathering points, amenities such as park benches and different monuments and whatnot. So as part of the project, we will analyze that, and we'll be coming back to residents, to the public, during our Public Information Center meeting number 2 with more details and some actual real life examples of what we plan on doing with Holland Street. But we do encourage you, if you do have those type of ideas, if you do identify a certain location along Holland Street or along the side roads or even just outside the corridor that you think is a real good candidate for gathering spaces, we do encourage you to reach out. Let me know, send me an email of what your thoughts are, and we'll make sure we take that into account as part of the study.
Yeah, also just based on that, Marcio, I wanted to highlight that as part of the survey, maybe Olivia, you can go to it, the map section. I'm not sure if we touched on that, but there's a map available. I think it's in step 4, where you can put a pin comment at a specific location. So exactly what Marcio was saying, if you have an idea of a particular space of importance, you can put a pin at that location and specify it as a potential location and for a gathering space. So we'll look at all of these comments You know, if it's a particular, you know, nice, pleasant area, we also want to hear about that, as well as if there are any issues along the corridor.
Perfect. And we can move on to the next question. The question is, assuming the study is accepted by council, what would be the next step? Would there need to be additional budget allocated to complete the plan? Marcia, can we go to you first on that?
Yeah, so if we look at the future and the project with our tight timelines and our schedule goes to council at the beginning of June, typically once council endorses the alternative design that we're presenting in Public Information Center meeting number 2 in April, once they endorse that design, we would go to our next stage of filing our environmental servicing report, study report. That report would be filed under the environmental assessment process for 30 days for public review. Once that assessment is complete and the 30 days elapses, we'd be looking at about midsummer. At that point, we would probably initiate our detailed design sometime early fall. Design, it's kind of a hit or miss depending on the extent of the design that we need to do. But typically a design of this caliber, it's a 2 kilometer stretch of road with a bunch of side streets, could take somewhere in about a year to 2 years to complete. And then we'd be looking at potential construction after that. What I do want to bring forward and make mention though, is that I mentioned before that the Transportation Master Plan is a guiding document that will identify the needs, the requirements for Holland Street and other roads around town as well. But specifically speaking for Holland Street, the Transportation Master Plan will identify also when we need to make those upgrades to Holland Street and what those upgrades need to be. So although we might file this environmental study report in the summertime and commence design in the fall, construction would follow after or in later years based on what the recommendations of the Transportation Master Plan says. So I wanted to put that out there. In terms of the second point, where we need to allocate additional budget to complete the plan. At this time, it's very uncertain. Budget was allocated for this project under DC and development charges and tax base back around 2010, I want to say. And as some people might know, the project was already brought forward with some alternatives at the beginning of 2014 or so. And so we're kind of revitalizing this project. And that's, if you look at the name of this project, we call it an update. And that's really what it is. But we want to consult the public and go through this process again, just to make sure that we have everyone on board and we get as much quality information that we can so that this project can go through and come to fruition. So at this point, we don't know exactly in terms of budget until we have a design. We'll look at the funds that were made available to us as part of this project back in 2010, and then determine if we need to go looking for additional funds or if we can build the project within the funding envelope that we have.
Perfect. Thanks, Marcio. We have a comment as well from a resident noting that they avoid Holland Street when driving east to west because of the backlog at Barrie and Simcoe. Might the EA suggest things like prohibiting left turns from Holland Street onto Simcoe, as this contributes to congestion? We had a question similar in the first presentation. Marcia, could we go to you again on this?
Right. So the Transportation Master Plan will be, like I said, will be a guiding document. It'll tell us basically how many lanes we need and where we need them. Once we've determined that, the next step would be to look at every intersection along Holland Street within our study corridor. So right from the Sobeys or Bradford High, Melbourne Drive, all the way down to Descent and Marshview. What that's going to do is when we analyze every intersection, we're going to come up with a plan for signalized replacement and also smart technologies that look at the lights working in unison. So at this point, we don't know exactly where these turn lanes are going to be or how the lights are going to be configured or what the timing of these lights are going to be. But we will take that into consideration. It's something that we know it exists. I drive through town all the time, so I do feel that comment. I totally understand. So we will be addressing that as part of this project, without a doubt.
And Marcia, will stick with you for this question as well. It's in the same vein as the question you're just answering on the TMP. The question is, if the bypass is not built, what contingencies could be developed?
So what we're actually doing, again, referencing the Transportation Master Plan, when I put out the request for proposal, I'd indicated in that plan 2 different scenarios. So those scenarios analyzed the town of Bradford's transportation system with the bypass in place, and it also analyzed the transportation system in Bradford without the bypass in place. So that's our contingency plan. We have a plan in place that if the bypass happens, this is the route we need to go. The bypass doesn't happen, then route 2 is what we'll likely take. So we do have that in place just in case.
Perfect. And we do have one more question in the chat. And just a reminder, if you do have any further questions, we still have some time left, so feel free to put them in the chat anytime. The question here is, do you have a schedule for when you will start construction and how long it will take? And can you also speak to how this will affect local businesses that exist in the study area? Marcia, can we start with you there?
Yeah, so that's really the big question. And as part of the notification for the Holland Street EA, we had 10,000 notices delivered within property owners' water bills. And knowing that that wouldn't touch all of the business owners along Holland Street, I went out and I handed 200 notices personally to supervisors, managers, and owners. And I think that's one of the key things to make this project work, to make sure that it goes through as smooth as possible as consultation. And that's why we have these public information center meetings. That's why we go door to door and we make sure we make a connection with those business owners. So construction, it really depends on what the design ends up saying or what the EA ends up saying we need to do with this project, with the road. Construction can take anywhere from a couple of months to a couple of years. But in saying that, we need to be very strategic with this project because we know it's going to affect not only the business owners, but traffic. And that's a big key factor here. So we'll be looking at that as part of the EA process and the detailed design process. And we'll be working with individual businesses throughout that time to make sure that we minimize inconveniences and we ensure that people continue to keep their doors open to provide the services that they provide today.
And that seems to be all of the questions in the chat box, and I don't see any hands raised either. So I'll discuss step 4 of the survey, and if any questions come up, we can circle back in the remaining time that we have. So if you scroll down from the video screen, if you click on step 4 in the menu, you'll see 3 questions. Jerry touched on the mapping question earlier, but I'll just reiterate some of that and then touch on the other 2 questions that are there as well. One of the questions is for any comments you might have, and another is there for any contact information as well. Feel free to share any thoughts with us in that space. If you would like a comment, a response back from the town or the project team to a specific question, please remember to share your name and email address on that page as well. And as Olivia was just had up on the screen, we do have a mapping tool that you should be able to use to add any information. There's a button in the top right corner that says add point. You can click on that button to drop a pin anywhere on the interactive map to share any thoughts you might have on the study area. There's no limit to the amount of pins that you can drop, so feel free to share as much information as you would like. Just to note that I know some people think about these questions quite a bit before answering and really get to know the site. These questions are going to be on the page after the meeting is completed today, and it will be on the project website until March 4th. So if you don't have a chance to complete it today, feel free to return to the project website at any point before March 4th to share your responses. You can also call in to 1-855-925-2801 and dial 4984. The number is also right above the video screen to leave your comments via voicemail as well. And lastly, a recording of this presentation will be posted in the coming days on the project webpage. I don't see any questions in the chat box, and there don't seem to be hands raised as well, so I will throw it back to Marcio to close out the meeting.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Again, we want to thank everyone for taking time out of their evening to attend. I mentioned it's not really typical to do this online, but that's what we've been dealing with. So we're looking forward to receiving your comments, receiving your feedback. I do encourage you again, enter into that draw for those gift cards. We'll be announcing the winner after, I think it's March the 4th. And we just encourage you to participate and make your voice heard, because without your voice, we can't make this project, we can't try to fit everybody's needs. So we really do want this project to go forward, want it to go forward effectively and very efficiently, and we can't do that without everybody. So please send your comments over through the website or direct email to me, and we encourage you to participate as much as possible.
Perfect. And that concludes today's meeting. Have a great day, everyone.